Dear students, welcome to the session of biology. Another interesting topic today we are going to discuss, that is morphology of flowering plants, that is angiosperms. Anyway, this is one of the oldest branch, a very first branch which developed in the botany actually, and interesting also. This is one of the basis for this botany actually here. So today we are going to see the key points and important points regarding this chapter, that is morphology of the flowering plants, that is. And as far as the NEET is concerned, even it is interesting because every year you can see 2 to 3 questions, 3 questions around. I think already I gave the data. 2025 latest is the 2 questions, 24 4 questions, 23 3 questions, 22 3 questions, 21 2 questions, and 23 questions. That is on an average around 3 questions. So definitely it's important, that is as far as the exam is also concerned. And here I am giving the questions which were already asked in the years of NEET examination. So this is the question that symmetry of the flower given in 2025, symmetry of the flower, that is already answer is also here, question and answer is also here actually, that is. So next one is the another statement type of question in 2025. So here also, that is the symbols which are very important in the floral formula. So regarding this, the question is framed, and this is the question, and the answer is 2 already is given. That is the another question. So next one is 24, NEET PYQ. So this is the question again, structural symmetry. Again the question is framed based on structural symmetry. The answer is 1, that is the Datura actually. So next one is a diagram based question. That is 2024 diagram based. Here the types of flower, that is based upon the position of ovary with respect to other floral parts. So here that is answer given is 4, where the both diagrams successively perigynous and perigynous, that is. Next 2024 again, this is a matching type here. So in this 2-column matching question that is given, one is the example, the other one is the character. It may be a floral character or a type of fruit here or placentation. So that is finally they framed the question based on the different characters of the morphology, that is. Next one is the 24 again, another matching same, but here that is first list one is mainly based on types of stamens, especially types of stamens, that is monodelphous, diadelphous, polyadelphous, epiphyllous likewise, and he gave the examples here. And the answer is 1. That is a 2-column matching question. This is 24. Next one belongs to 2023. Here the family Fabaceae, Solanaceae and Liliaceae, the characters of 3 different families. The question is framed based on the characters of 3 different families in taxonomy, that is Fabaceae, Solanaceae and Liliaceae. The answer is 3, that is. So next one is again 2023. Here placentation. The question is framed directly on the placentation, that is axial placentation is found in which members of the plants directly. The answer is 2, China rose, petunia and lemon, that is the question. Another 2023 question here, assertion reason type of, that means in the morphology he is framing the different patterns of questions. It may be a simple MCQ, it may be a 2 statement, or it may be a matching 2-column matching, or even it may be assertion reason type of question is also, that is assertion reason question, that is. So anyway, these are the different questions asked here. So before going to the discussion about this chapter morphology, just I am going to explain the flower. So anyway, flower is the reproductive structure, organ, a modified shoot which is born on the sporophyte, that is flower. So basically, you can identify the flower into different headings. First one is the merosity. That is, what type of merosity will be there? Three types: trimerous, tetramerous and pentamerous. Three types are there. Next one is the structural symmetry: actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetric. Next one, the types of flowers based on position of ovary with respect to other floral parts. You can divide the flowers into hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous. Three types of flowers. I gave the characters, the shape of the thalamus also here, that is. And next one is the sexuality of the flower. So the flowers may be unisexual or bisexual. So unisexual means the flower contain any one of the essential organ, either androecium or gynoecium. If only androecium is there, it is called staminate or male flower. If only gynoecium is there, then it is called female or pistillate flower. Anyway, if both androecium and gynoecium both are present, the flower may be considered as bisexual flower. That is, anyway, unisexual flowers are advanced when compared to bisexual flowers. Now coming to the flower, the four different whorls of the flower. It's very important because it is a modified shoot, that is. So you can basically divide them into non-essential and essential organs. So non-essential means they won't directly participate in the reproduction. That is, first whorl, second whorl. So first whorl is called calyx, a group of sepals. That is, of course, the sepals may be either polysepalous or gamosepalous. If the sepals are free, it is called poly. If the sepals are united, then it is called gamosepalous. Second whorl, that is corolla, a group of petals which are attractive with different colors, and it may be polypetalous or gamopetalous, same definition. And regarding the perianth, this non-essential, we will also study the aestivation. It's a very important aspect. Arrangement of the perianth lobes on the thalamus in bud condition is called aestivation. There are different types of aestivations: valvate, twisted, imbricate, vexillary and quincuncial. Anyway, we will discuss this in detail in a video, short video we will discuss. That is. Now coming to the essential organs. Third whorl is called androecium, a group of stamens. If you look into the stamen again, you can divide them into filament. The stalk is called filament and the tip of the filament contain anther, fertile portion, that is. Of course, the anthers are either monothecous or dithecous. That means each theca contain 2 microsporangia. That is, monothecous contain 2 microsporangia, dithecous contain 4 microsporangia. And this may be considered as a male reproductive organ in the flower. And last one is the fourth whorl, innermost whorl of the flower on the thalamus is gynoecium. It is a group of carpels, made up of carpels, and it is considered as a female reproductive organ of the flower. And each carpel can be divided into stigma, style and ovary. And inside the ovary, you will find the ovules. That means these are non-naked ovules because they are enveloped by ovary wall. That is. And anyway, placentation. How the ovules are arranged in the ovary. That pattern is called placentation, different types. Anyway, this also I will explain in the video in detail. Marginal, parietal, axial, free central and basal placentation. Now, I am going to explain some of the key points already I underlined in the NCERT textbook. This verbatically is very important because most of the questions and statements may be given based on the actual content in the NCERT. That is. So, this is the first introduction. That is. So, this is the scientist here. The scientist quoted here is the Catherine Esau. That is. The first one is she reported in her early publications that the curly top virus spreads through via phloem tissue is very important. That is. And the books published by Dr. Esau, Plant Anatomy, The Anatomy of Seed Plants, the 2 books. And of course, the second one referred as Webster's of Plant Biology. And prestigious awards National Medal of Science from the President George Bush in 1989, that is. And of course, the very important comment made by Peter Raven, who considered as Director of Anatomy of Morphology, Missouri Botanical Garden, remembered that she absolutely dominated the field of plant biology even at the age of 99. That is the given by Peter Raven. And this is regarding the scientist, Catherine Esau. So next one is the angiosperms show large diversity in the external structure or morphology. This is one of the vast subject. Great diversity in the external structure or that is morphology. That is the thing. Coming to the root. So the direct elongation of the radical leads to the formation of primary root. Of course, on the surface of the primary root, you can see the development of secondary roots, tertiary and rootlets. That is the structure. And the types of root system, one is the taproot system, the other one is fibrous root system, the other one is adventitious root system. That is taproot system, fibrous root system, and adventitious root system. And here he quoted the examples. For example, fibrous root system, that is like grasses, wheat plant. Grasses generally fibrous root system will be there. Even adventitious root system quoted is some grasses, monstera and banyan tree. That is the adventitious root system. And of course this is the diagram. Anyway, diagram part. And the root system functions: absorption of water and minerals from the soil, one, providing a proper anchorage to the plant parts, storing reserve food material, and synthesis of plant growth regulators. Generally, we will memorize only the first two, but this is also important. Storing reserve food material and synthesis of plant growth regulators. This is the general function of the root system. And of course, these are the diagrams. Later, I will explain about the diagrams. Now, coming to here, that is, so this is the regions of the root actually. That is the root cap or calyptra, thimble-like structure important. The shape is thimble-like structure is important here. That is, next meristematic zone. This is the meristematic zone actually. This is the root cap. This is the meristematic zone actually. Growth region of elongation. This is the region of maturation. So the description of the each three zones here. So where actually the root hairs are found on the maturation region, and root hairs are unicellular extension of epidermal cells. And but you should not consider them as a trichomes, you remember. That is important here. That is. And next, this is the stem. So the structure of the stem, that is characters, nodes and internodes are present generally, and where the plumule of the embryo directly develops into shoot system, that is, and these functions. That means the stem is spreading out branches bearing leaves, flowers and fruits. It conducts water, minerals and photosynthesis. And some stems perform the function of storage. For these are the modifications actually. That is the stem actually. Next one is the leaf. So the leaf is flattened structure born on the stem. That is, the axillary bud directly develops into branch, and leaves originate from the shoot apical meristem. This is important, and are arranged in acropetal order. That means older leaves are at the base, younger leaves are at the apex. That is, and the most important vegetative organs of photosynthesis. That is the leaf function. And this is the typical leaf actually. What are the four parts? That is the leaf base. This is stipules on either side of the leaf base. Stalk of the leaf is called petiole, and this is called lamina. Of course, axillary bud. This is upper angle between leaf and stem is called axil of the leaf, which contain axillary bud. That is. And in some cases, some of the legumes, pulvinous leaf base. The leaf base is swollen, which is called pulvinous. That is, anyway, the lamina or the leaf blade contain veins, midrib, lateral veins, and they provide rigidity to the leaf blade and act as channels of transport of water, minerals, and food materials. That is the lamina. That is. And next one is the venation, arrangement of venation. So basically, you can see two types of venations here. That is, one is reticulate venation, the second one is parallel venation. So reticulate venation here mainly present in the dicots, usually present in, of course there are some exceptions. Parallel venation is normally found in the monocots, that is most of the monocots. Of course, because exceptions are there even here also. That is the two types of venation here. Next one is the types of leaves. Two types of leaves, simple leaf and compound leaf. So, if the leaf blade is not completely divided up to the midrib, then it is called simple leaf. Or the development of compound leaf where the lamina is dissected up to the midrib completely and each portion is converted to leaflet. Each one is called leaflet, that is compound leaf. So, compound leaf is advanced when compared to simple leaf, that is, and compound leaves are again two types, pinnately compound and palmately compound. You see, in pinnately compound leaf, the rachis is present, the leaflets are arranged on lachis. Then it is pinnately compound leaf, example quoted is the neem. And second one, rachis is absent here. And the leaflets are borne at the tip of the petiole. That is palmately compound leaf, example quoted is silk cotton, that is. So, difference between pinnately compound and palmately compound leaf, that is. Next one is the phyllotaxy, very, very important, arrangement of leaves on the stem. That is, three types of phyllotaxy here, alternate, opposite and whorled. Three types. Alternate means at each node only one leaf arises. Opposite means at each node two leaves are exactly opposite to each other, that is. And whorled, that is means more than two leaves arise at the node, that is called whorled. And here the examples quoted, alternate is China rose, opposite is guava, and whorled is Alstonia. That is three types of phyllotaxy. Next one is the inflorescence. So basically, solitary flower or inflorescence, because most of the plants angiosperms will produce the flowers in the form of inflorescence, no doubt about it. But basically, there are two types of inflorescence. One is the racemose, second one is cymose. These are the two types. So, in racemose type of inflorescence, what happens is the peduncle grows indefinitely. That means the tip of the peduncle never modifies into a flower. That is first one. Second, the flowers develop in acropetal manner. Older flowers are at the base, younger flowers are at apex. If the peduncle is condensed, the opening is centripetal opening. If these three characters are there, then it is called racemose. Second one is the cymose type of inflorescence. So, what is cymose type of inflorescence means? The peduncle shows a definite growth. What is the meaning of definite means? The tip is modified into a flower directly. The tip is modified into a flower. That is. So, again branches arise which also produce the flowers like this. So, here second character is the flowers are born in basipetal manner. Older flowers are at the apex, younger are at the base. That is, and the opening is automatically centrifugal. So, these are the two types of inflorescence, racemose and cymose, important characters. So, next one is the flower concept. Next one is the flower, that is. So, flower is a modified shoot, that is. So, the part of the stem is condensed, that is, the internodes are condensed to form tip of the pedicel, that is called thalamus or receptacle here. And above the thalamus, at each node, the leaves are modified into floral leaves. So usually 4 whorls, 4 nodes are there, 4 whorls: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Already explained, that is, this is the structure actually. And this is the symmetry, structural symmetry, that is actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetric. Third one is the asymmetric. 3 types of symmetries based on, and the examples are also quoted here. I underlined here. It's very important. Usually they will give the examples only which are given in the NCERT only. This is very important. Already you studied. The questions are mainly based on the structural symmetry. 3 questions are there in the last 3 years. We saw the question, that is. So next one is the merosity. Trimerous, tetramerous or pentamerous. See, this is important thing is merosity will be decided by number of floral leaves in each whorl, not the number of whorls, you remember. So generally each whorl contains 3 or multiples of 3, then it is called trimerous. It is an important character of monocots. Tetramerous, 4 or multiples of 4 in each whorl, 5 or multiples of 5 in each whorl, pentamerous. Tetra and pentamerous are normally found in dicots. Trimerous is found in the monocots actually. Of course, next these are the diagrams related to the types of flowers based on position of ovary with respect to other parts of the flower. 3 types: hypogynous, that is perigynous and epigynous. The same examples are also quoted here. I will explain the structure in the next video, that is types of flowers actually. So here you note down the types and important examples, that is important here. Next one, parts of the whorls. First one is the calyx, that is, so a group of sepals. It may be free or united. Already I told you, that is gamosepalous means united, polysepalous means they are free. Corolla, second whorl, that is composed of petals. Petals are brightly colored. Anyway, you know, the mainly to attract the insects and others for pollination purpose, that is second whorl. Same polypetalous or gamopetalous. Here he quoted the types important. Shapes. Corolla may be tubular. For example, disc floret of Asteraceae. Bell shaped, that is Atropa in Solanaceae. Funnel shaped, Datura in Solanaceae. Wheel shaped, Solanum, Solanaceae. So he mentioned the shapes of petals also here, that is corolla, that is. Next one is the aestivation, that is. So 5 types of aestivation already I told you. This also I will explain in detail in the video, that is separately, because it is important. And this is the description and examples. Different types of aestivation plus examples here. So you must note down the examples important, because usually they will give only these examples, that is. Next one is the androecium. So here the stamen structure, and that is number of microsporangia. See here important, a sterile stamen is called staminode. That is, for example, cassia, you can give the example. Staminodes. That means they won't produce any pollen grains. Sterile, that is. Next one is the union. So here, epipetalous. Epipetalous means the filaments are attached to petals. Example quoted brinjal, solanum. Or epiphyllous, they are attached to perianth in liliaceae, lily flower, that is. Or if all the filaments are united in one bundle, then it is called monadelphous. Example, China rose, important feature of Malvaceae. Or if the filaments are united to form 2 bundles, diadelphous. It is an important feature of Fabaceae. That is, if it is more than 2 bundles, it is called polyadelphous. Example, citrus. Polyadelphous is citrus, that is. And another important, the height of the stamens may not be the same in some cases. Of course, in majority of the cases, it may be the same. But there are some cases where the height is different. There are two conditions here. One is the didynamous and second one is the tetradynamous. So didynamous means, example, salvia. You can give ocimum also. That is where 4 stamens, out of which 2 are short and 2 are long. That is called didynamous. And mustard, tetradynamous brassicaceae, mustard family. That is, here total number of stamens are 6. 2 plus 4. That means outer whorl 2, inner whorl 4. Outer whorl are short and inner whorl are long. This is tetradynamous. It's important. Didynamous, tetradynamous, salvia and mustard. That is. So next one is the gynoecium, last whorl. Anyway, carpels. Already I gave the parts of the carpel: stigma, style and ovary. That is 3. That is. And anyway, placenta. The ovules are attached to flattened cushion-like placenta in the ovary. That is. But here the carpels union 2 types. First one is the apocarpus. Apocarpus means the carpels are completely free. They do not fuse with each other. So each carpel is having its own ovary, its own style and its own stigma. That condition is apocarpus, is a primitive condition. That is a primitive condition. Second one is syncarpus, where carpels are completely fused. That is, see apocarpus example, he quoted lotus and rose, you remember. These are 2 important. Apocarpus, lotus and rose. Syncarpus example quoted is, this is tomato and mustard. Tomato and mustard. So in syncarpus, whatever the number of carpels, only 1 ovary, 1 style and 1 stigma. That is syncarpus. Syncarpus is advanced when compared to apocarpus. So next one is the placentation. So how the ovules are arranged in the ovary, that is placentation, different types. First one is the marginal placentation. It is an important feature of Fabaceae. That is, he gave the example P here, where the ovules are attached at ventral sutures. This also I will explain in the short video. That is, so here just you note down the types and examples. Next one is the axial placentation, China rose. Parietal placentation, that is mustard and argemone. Free central placentation, dianthus and primrose. And last one is the basal placentation, important feature of Asteraceae and Poaceae. Asteraceae and Poaceae. Asteraceae examples he quoted here, sunflower and marigold. So this is the placentation. Next one is the fruit. Anyway, so after the fertilization, the ovary converts into fruit, that is. But rarely, if a fruit is formed without fertilization, then it is called parthenocarpic fruit. And phenomenon is called parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpic fruits are seedless. Anyway, pericarp. Ovary wall is called pericarp. That is, in fleshy fruits, the pericarp is differentiated into 3 layers. Outer one is called epicarp. Middle one is called mesocarp. Inner one is called endocarp. Actually 3 layers. Of course, this differentiation is present only in fleshy fruits, not in the dry fruits, remember. That is. Examples he quoted, mango and coconut, the fruit is called drupe, it is a fleshy fruit. So the important feature of the drupe is, it generally developed from monocarpellary superior ovary. And in mango, the pericarp is differentiated. Outer one is epicarp, leathery. Middle one mesocarp, fleshy. And endocarp is stony, important feature of drupe. Same in case of Cocos nucifera, that is epicarp is leathery, mesocarp is fibrous, endocarp is stony. This is the stony layer. Of course, no part in the pericarp is edible in Cocos because endosperm is the edible part, but whereas in mango, the mesocarp is the edible part. That is the difference. These are the 2 examples for drupe actually. That is. So next one is the structure of the seed. So seed means he quoted the differences between dicot seed and monocot seed here. That is, so here post fertilization changes. That means the integuments are converted to seed coat or the integument of the ovule. If it is a bitegmic ovule, the outer one is testa, inner one is called tegmen. Next, hilum, scar on the seed coat where the developing seeds are attached to the fruit, important. The small pore is above that hilum is called micropyle. Next one is the cotyledons, two cotyledons. So this is the hilum here, this is the micropyle region. This entire thing is seed coat. The entire is seed coat actually. And this is the embryo. And this is embryonic axis. These are the two cotyledons because it is a dicot. And the embryonic axis is also called tigellum. Tigellum, T-I-G-E-L-U-M. And it is differentiated to plumule and radicle. Anyway, you know, plumule develops into shoot system, radicle develops into root system. That is. And here, the seed may contain endosperm or may not. Because in some cases what happens is the entire endosperm is used by the developing embryo, then it is called non-endospermic seed or exalbuminous. That is. But sometime what happens, a part of the endosperm is used during the development of embryo, the remaining is kept in the seed, then it is called endospermic seed. That is albuminous. So, two types, endospermic seeds and non-endospermic seeds. The two important difference regarding the endosperm. That is. Next one is the monocot seed. So, the example quoted is the maize here. Anyway, in maize, the fruit is called caryopsis. Single-seeded, dry indehiscent fruit actually. The significance of the caryopsis is the pericarp is fused with the seed coat inseparably. There is an important feature of phaeacy. That is. So, if you look into the different parts here, so this is the embryo is kept because the major part of the seed is occupied by endosperm, bulky endosperm. So, that's why it is embryo is pushed aside here. So, this is the embryonic axis, plumule and radicle. But here, protective sheath-like structures are present above the plumule. That is, this is coleoptile. Same protective structure above the sheath-like structure above the radicle is called as coleorhiza. You see two structures. Such structures are absent in case of dicot seeds. Coleoptile and coleorhiza. That is, and only one cotyledon which is a large, especially in gases, it is a shield-shaped structure called scutellum. So, ploidy of any part of all these parts embryo 2n only, remember. Part of embryo, any part of the embryo is 2n. Now, the remaining portion is endosperm. But here, the outermost layer of the endosperm is called aileron layer. This is aileron layer. Because it is rich in proteins, that's why it is called aileron layer. So, ploidy of aileron layer is also 3n here. That is. Remaining is the endosperm. That is. So, this is the monocot seed. That is. So, with this actually morphology is completed, but actually this is the taxonomy, semi-technical description of a typical flowering plant. So, here you have to, there is no need to underline because you have to memorize each and every symbol here, compulsory. For example, BR bracteate, EBR ebracteate, BRL bracteolate, that is. Likewise, this symbol is unisexual female, this is bisexual, that is. This is male flower, that is, and this is inferior ovary, that is. This is superior ovary. Suppose if you keep a bar in the middle, half superior. Likewise, these are you have to memorize all the symbols, that is very important. So, this is the floral diagram with floral formula. This also I will explain in short video. That is. So, that's why I didn't underline here. You have to study the entire thing. That is. So, here actually in textbook NCERT, he mentioned only one family, that is Solanaceae. But as far as the NEET is concerned, he described different families. In the syllabus he quoted, they are Brassicaceae, Malvaceae, Fabaceae, Solanaceae, Asteraceae, Liliaceae and Poaceae. Different families are there. Anyway, I gave this information at the last in the form of a comparative table account. But here this is the Solanaceae, this is the distribution. So here the stem modification, potato, Solanum tuberosum, and leaves are rarely pinnately compound, usually simple leaves. That is, this is Solanum nigram diagram. Example quoted is the Solanum nigram or Makoi flower. Makoi, that is. So here inflorescence is cymose in Solanum, flower bisexual and actinomorphic, calyx 5, valvate aestivation, petals 5, valvate aestivation, united gamopetals, that is androecium 5, epipetals, and only adhesion but not cohesion. Gynoecium bicarpellaris in carpus, that is, and superior ovary, gynoecium, superior ovary, placentation, axial placentation, but swollen axial placentation, important feature of Solanaceae actually. Fruit is berry or capsule, seeds generally endospermic, floral formula, this is the floral formula of Solanaceae, important. Actinomorphic, bisexual, K5 united, C5 united, A5 epipetalous, G2 syncarpus, superior ovary, that is. And economic importance also important. Food, tomato, brinjal, potato. Spice, chili. Medicine, belladonna, ashwagandha. Fumigatory, tobacco. And ornamentally is petunia, that is. So, this is the text quoted here. Anyway, these are the exercises. So, this is a very important aspect regarding the flower types of flowers here, that is. So, here 3 types of flowers already explained you, that is based upon the position of ovary with respect to other floral parts. See, this is hypogynous. Thalamus is conical shaped thalamus. So, automatically the ovary is present at the tip of the thalamus. The other floral parts arise below the ovary. That's why the flower is called hypogynous and position of ovary is called superior ovary. This is hypogynous concept. See, second and third diagrams both are perigynous. Already one question is given. You saw the question. That is, identify which type of flower it is. So here, generally, thalamus is saucer shape. Thalamus is saucer shape and the ovary lies in the middle and the other floral parts arise from the margin of the thalamus. So what will happen is, if you look into the position of the ovary, half of the ovary lies below the other parts, half of the ovary lies above the other. Hence, the ovary position is called as half superior or half inferior ovary. This is perigynous concept. Important. We have to identify by looking into the diagram. And last one is the epigynous. In epigynous, the thalamus is a deep cup-shaped structure. The thalamus is a deep cup-shaped structure and the ovary wall is completely embedded in the thalamus and fused with the thalamus also. Fused with the thalamus. So, other floral parts arise, that is above the ovary. You see calyx, corolla and androecium or stamens arise above the ovary. So, the flower is called epigynous. Epi means upon, gynous means gynoecium. The other floral parts arise above the ovary and position of ovary is inferior. So, these are the 3 different types of flowers. Hypogynous, these 2 are perigynous and this is epigynous. This is very important. So, next one is the aestivation is also very important. So, the definition of the aestivation is arrangement of perianthropes on the thalamus in bud condition. We have to study the aestivation only in the bud condition, not after opening of the flower actually. So, here the first one is the valvate aestivation. This is the valvate aestivation. So, here what happens is the margins will never overlap with each other. They are present side by side. They may be free or united, whatever it may be. They do not overlap with each other. present side by side, that is, they may be free or united, and this kind of aestivation is called as valvate aestivation. This is the valvate aestivation. Next one is the twisted aestivation. So in twisted aestivation, every perianth lobe is overlapped by other perianth lobe. That means for every perianth lobe, one margin is inside, the other margin is outside. This kind of aestivation is called twisted aestivation. It is an important feature of coral of Malvaceae. Coral of Malvaceae, this type of aestivation you will find. Second one. Third one is the imbricate aestivation. There is no definite pattern of overlapping here. Here what happens is, this is posterior side, this is anterior side actually. In anterior side, the perianth lobe, both margins are outside. The posterior perianth lobe, both margins are inside. For the remaining three, one margin is outside, one margin is inside. This kind of aestivation is called as imbricate aestivation. It is a typical feature of coral of Cisalpinaceae. Coral of Cisalpinaceae. And last one is the vexillary aestivation actually. It is a typical feature of the coral of Fabaceae. Why is it called vexillary? Means the papilionaceous corolla you see here, there are 5 different petals are there. So this is the posterior, very large one, attractive. This is called standard petal or vexillum. Standard petal or vexillum. And these two are lateral petals which are called wing petals or alae. And these two anterior small petals are called keel petals or carina. Keel or carina, that is. So here if you look into the overlapping, the posterior petal has both margins outside and the anterior will have the inside actually. The remaining 3, one margin is outside, the other margin is inside. That is. So this kind of aestivation is called as vexillary aestivation, and it is a typical feature of, that is, Fabaceae, coral of Fabaceae. So these are the 4 important types of aestivations. That is. So next one is the placentation. Anyway, the ovules are non-naked in case of angiosperms because the ovules are born inside the ovary. We cannot see them, that's why. There is important difference between gymnosperms and angiosperms. That is, anyway, the ovules are attached to cushion-like structure on the ovary. That is called placenta, and this arrangement pattern is called placentation. So the first one is the marginal placentation. So marginal placentation is the typical feature of Fabaceae actually. So here you know, monocarpellary unilocular superior ovary this is. Now, the ovules are attached to ventral suture. This is ventral, this is dorsal. The ovules are attached to ventral suture in 2 rows, alternate margins. That's why it is called marginal placentation. So, unilocular ovary with many ovules. Unilocular with many ovules. Typical feature of, that is, Fabaceae. That is. Next one is the axial placentation. So in axial placentation, what happens is, all ventral sutures are fused in the center during the development of ovary in syncarpous ovary. So axis is formed in the center with the septa. That means the cross wall is called septum. And of course, each space is called locule. That is. So here, the ovules are attached to axis. That's why it is called axial placentation. Axial placentation. So, Malvaceae we are having axial placentation is there. Solanaceae swollen axial placentation is there. That is Liliaceae axial placentation is there. 3 families in our syllabus, that is. So, this is the axial placentation. Next one, parietal placentation. So, parietal means wall. Directly the ovary The ovules are attached to the ovary wall. It is attached to ovary wall directly. That's why it is called parietal placentation. Of course, this is cucurbitaceae. Tricarpellary syncarpus, that is unilocular inferior ovary actually, only one. So here 3 placenta are there, where ovules are attached to ovary wall. The other example is brassica, where bicarpellary syncarpus initially unilocular, but because of the formation of false septum, it will become bilocular. There also the ovules are attached to ovary wall. This is parietal placentation. Next, free central placentation, dianthus. So in free central placentation, actually it is developed from the axial placentation. But during the development of ovary, what happens is, after the formation of the central axis, the septa degenerate. Then the ovary becomes unilocular, where the center contain axis only without septa. Now the ovules are attached to the axis in the center. That's why it is called free central placentation. Dianthus. That is free central. So last one is the basal placentation. It is a typical feature of the family Asteraceae. Bicarpellary syncarpus unilocular inferior ovary. That is, so here the entire ovary unilocular, only one ovule will be there, and the ovule is attached to the base of the ovary. That's why it is called basal placentation. Even basal placentation is present in Poaceae, grass family also. So these are the different types of placentation in the angiosperms. So generally they will give you the questions based on diagrams and also examples for this one. That is. So next one is the structure of dicot embryo and monocot embryo. That is. So dicot embryo, here clearly you can see this is embryonic axis, plumule and radicle. 2 cotyledons are there. 2 cotyledons. It may be endospermic or non-endospermic, both are there. If endosperm is retained at the maturity of the seed, it is called endospermic, otherwise it is called non-endospermic. That is. So this is the monocot here, maize example. So this is the endosperm, this is the embryo, embryonic axis, plumule and radicle. But you see the plumule is covered and protected by sheath-like structure above the plumule, which is called coleoptile. Same, the radicle is protected by sheath-like structure called coleorhiza. And because here monocot only one cotyledon, then grasses, it is a large shield-shaped structure called scutella. So any part of the embryo is 2n, you remember. And of course this is endosperm. The outermost layer of the endosperm is aileron layer. Because it is rich in proteins, that's why separately called aileron layer. But anyway, ploid is 3n only. The remaining is normal endosperm. So there is a difference between a dicot embryo and monocot embryo seed, dicot seed and monocot seed. Next one is the roots. That is, so this is the tap root system. This is the primary root or main root, on which secondary root, secondary content, tertiary roots, etc. That is, this is fibrous. See, at the base of the stem, you can see numerous fine hair-like roots are produced, which is called fibrous roots, commonly found in the grasses. And this is an example for adventitious root, directly born from the stem. Adventitious roots. 3 types of roots. That is. Next, region of the root tip. That is, so this is meristematic gene and region. It contains calyptra, a thimble-like structure. Calyptra or the root cap. This is the meristematic. Above is the region of elongation, and this is the region of maturation, where region of maturation produce numerous root hairs. Each root hair is unicellular extension of epidermal cell, and of course the cell is called trichoblast, and epidermis is called as rhizodermis or epiblema or piliferous layer. That is, anyway, the purpose of root hair is to absorb, to increase the surface area for absorption of water and minerals actually. So these are the three different reasons. That is the root tip. Next one is the types of leaves. Types of leaves, it's only comparison between two types of compound leaves. Both are compound leaves only. So this is pinnately compound, this is palmately. So the major difference is the rachis. See here, rachis is present, the leaflets are borne on either side of the rachis. Either side. This is pinnately compound leaf, neem example. Second one is the palmately, rachis is absent here. Then how the leaflets are formed means they are attached to tip of petiole. This is the petiole. Tip of petiole, no rachis. This is palmately compound leaf, example silk cotton. Example. That is the difference between pinnately compound leaf and palmately compound leaf. That is. So next one is the phyllotaxy. Arrangement of leaves on the stem. It's very important arrangement. This is there is a scientific background arrangement because the leaves have to better expose it to directly sunlight. They have to avoid the overlapping. For all these reasons, different types of phyllotaxy plants exhibit. First one is the alternate phyllotaxy here or spiral phyllotaxy. So where each node produces only one leaf. This is alternate. China rose, Evergean. Next, opposite phyllotaxy means at each node two leaves are raised exactly opposite each other. That means the angle between two leaves is 180. This is called opposite phyllotaxy. Example, guava. And more than two leaves arise at each node, then it is called whorled phyllotaxy or circular phyllotaxy. That is, example quoted is Alstonia. On Alstonia, usually 7 leaves may arise at each node. That's why it is called Saptaparni or devil's tree. Anyway, so this is regarding the phyllotaxy. So next one is the inflorescence, racemose and cymose. Already I explained. Racemose means the peduncle shows indefinite growth, peduncle shows definite in cymose. Definite means the tip of the peduncle modifies into a flower, then it is definite. Second, the flowers arise in acropetal manner. Older flowers are at the base, younger flowers are at the apex. And in here, basipetal. Older flowers are at the apex, younger are at the base. Cymose. And the flower opening is in condensed state, centripetal. Here it is centrifugal. So this is the difference between racemose and cymose type of inflorescence, two types. So by diagram we can identify which is racemose and which is cymose. Next one is the drupe. So example he quoted, two examples are quoted for the drupe fruit, fleshy fruit, single seeded, generally developed from monocarpellary, that is unilocular superior ovary. Each one contains single seed. So this is mango and this is coconut, Cocos nicifera. This is Mangifera indica. In mango, the epicarp is leathery, mesocarp is fleshy, endocarp is stony. In cocos, of course, it is diagram is not complete. Epicarp is leathery, mesocarp is fibrous, and endocarp you are seeing brown color. This is stony. And no part in the pericarp is edible here, but endosperm is edible. In case of mango, the edible part is mesocarp. Edible part. And this is the floral diagram with the floral formula. This is the floral diagram of mustard plant, Brassicaceae representative. That is, see here, this is the mother axis. It indicates the posterior side. This is anterior side. Two sides. And here, the sepals are 4, 2 plus 2, 2 whorls. So this is outer whorl, this is inner whorl. Polysepals. And 4 petals are there. Valvate aestivation, that is only in one whorl, 4 polypetals. Clawed petals actually, that is. Next whorl is the stamens. 6 stamens are 2 whorls, 2 plus 4, outer whorl 2, inner whorl 4. Outer whorl 2 are short, inner whorl 4 are long, tetradenous condition actually, dithecous intrors. Dithecous intrors. And this is the ovary, bicarpellary, syncarpus already I told you, initially unilocular, but because of the formation of false septum called replum, this is the replum, it will become bilocular. That is. And this is the floral formula. The symbol indicates actinomorphic symmetry. This is bisexual. K 2 plus 2, 2 whorls, free, without bracket means free, poly. C4, no closed condition, that means free again, petals. A 2 plus 4, same, that is 2 whorls, 2 plus 4, outer whorl 2, inner whorl 4, that is neither cohesion nor adhesion. And G2 carpel, syncarpus, superior ovary. This is the diagram of mustard plant, floral diagram with the floral formula, that is. This is the Solanaceae diagrams. Generally in taxonomy, first diagram, a twig with inflorescence will be drawn. This is the twig with inflorescence actually, that is. And this is the flower. This is LS of the flower. Of course, stamens. This is the gynoecium. And this is the floral diagram of the Solanaceae actually here. Floral diagram of Solanaceae, that is. You can identify the diagrams. Solanaceae, that is. See here, I gave the comparative account of all the families. But actually in NCERT textbook, you have only Solanaceae description. But in the NEET syllabus, he quoted the families like, that is, the different families. Fabaceae, Solanaceae, Liliaceae, Brassicaceae, Malvaceae, Asteraceae, and Poaceae. So just you have comparative account. It's very simple. You can study always the taxonomy easily by comparison. Easy to memorize. But for example, symmetry of the flower if you look. Fabaceae zygomorphic, Solanaceae actinomorphic, Liliaceae actinomorphic, Brassicaceae actinomorphic, Malvaceae actinomorphic. See, Asteraceae, there are two types of florets. You know, disc floret and ray floret. Disc floret is actinomorphic, ray floret is zygomorphic. Poaceae, that is irregular symmetry. Likewise, easy to memorize. Comparatively all the families, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 families I quoted. Have a look about the various characters, that is. I wrote in the same fashion also. Of course, this is classification, symmetry, type of flower, inflorescence, calyx, aestivation, corolla, that is, and androecium, that is. This is the comparison. Still there are some characters. Next slide you will have that one. You see next one. So this is the remaining characters. Anther, gynoecium, ovary, locules, placentation, type of fruit, floral leaves, non-sporophylls number, total floral leaves number, sporophylls, non-sporophylls number, floral formula of all the families comparatively, same floral diagram. So these 7 families you will study always comparatively. Make a note here. So there are 2 slides. So this is regarding taxonomy. And here I gave the list of examples which were already quoted in morphology in NCERT textbook, only NCERT textbook. Have at a glance, starting from storage roots, that is taproot as well as adventitious roots. Again, I gave the examples, description. These are root modifications, these are stem modifications, that is, and these are the leaf modifications. Because actually a word is quoted in the syllabus, that is in NEET syllabus, he may ask the examples even from the laboratory manual 11 and 12. So based on that we collected that examples also. So you try to memorize these things. Note down these examples. Okay, so another next coming to the flower. Examples of the flower: symmetry, corolla shapes, Aestivation, types of androecium examples, same gynoecium examples. We can note down. For example, androecium epipetalis, brinjal, epiphyllus lily, monadelphus chinaros, diadelphus p, polydelphus citrus. Same variation of length of the filaments, diadenomous and tetradenomous, salvia and mustard. Likewise, examples. Okay. So next, these are some of the questions given for your information. Some of the questions, have a look at the questions after listening into the entire video. Now you can try to answer these questions. Okay. This is another question, matching. Answer is also quoted here. You can see try to solve and then you see the answer, whether it is correct or not. Next question. This is one question, this is another question. Two questions are there in this slide. This is one, this is another one. Two questions. The answer I gave here. Next, again, two questions are there. This is one question, this is another question. Next question, only one question here. Assertion reason type of question here. Next, two questions. This is one question, this is another question. This is only one question. Statement A, statement B. The answer is 2. Again, two questions here. This is one and this is another one. Next, this is the figure. Question framed based on the figure here. So here the examiner is asking about the first one regarding the Aestivation, second one is regarding the placentation, mixed. Two concepts are mixed here. The answer is 2, twisted Aestivation and free central placentation. This is matching. Combination actually, 3-column combination. Taxon, family and stamen. Next, 2-column matching, list 1, list 2. Okay. Thank you. I think, hope you understood well this morphology. The only thing is, in morphology, you try to write down all these examples and characters once. Thank you.